Hello and welcome back after kind of a 2 week absence. Apologize for episode 206. We had a lot of audio issues. We're back with a brand new microphone for episode 207 of Sutton Impact Family Style. I'm Jason.
I'm Bill. And Jason and I spent some time last week talking about NBA Top Shots. And I'm really intrigued by it, but Jason's the expert, so I'm going to let him talk about it, start our show.
So I'll just give you a little background of my last decade financially. Every time something has come up, whether it be some internet stuff or, Bitcoin or whatever, I've always been like, well, that's really dumb. That's never going to work. So I've decided my new philosophy is if I think it's dumb, I'm going to invest in it. Which brings us to NBA TopShot, where you are literally buying highlights. Now, granted, these are official highlights from the NBA. They're very well presented in a nice package, and they have an official number on them. So it could be as few as 1 in 2,500 or as many as 1 in 30,000. And you basically buy the highlight, or if you're lucky, you buy a pack, which gives you multiple highlights. You don't know what you're going to get. And then you can sell the highlights, keep the highlights, trade the highlights through NBA TopShot. Now, they're still in beta right now. And I think as of yesterday, they're still not taking new people on. But if it's something that sounds cool to you, it's basically digital card collecting. But I'm not the only one of my peers that are doing it. I have a friend, and we both bought the special pack where we had to wait in line for 3 hours. Well, virtual line, but And I got a Dame worth $300, and he got a Steph Curry worth $550. He put the Steph Curry on the market at $525, which is 25 below. And again, this is a brand new service, so who knows how these values are really made. He sold it in 10 minutes. So for a pack that he paid $9.99 for and got 3 cards, he flipped one for $525 in 10 minutes. And the other thing about NBA TopShot, the lower number you have is obviously the more valuable card. But the other thing is if you have, let's say, a LeBron 23, which is his number, it's worth more than any of the other ones in the deck. And then there's special highlight ones. Some of the highlights are cooler than other highlights. I don't know what the long-term future is, but it seems like it's pretty popular and people are really into it. So,
well, all sport collectibles are up dramatically this year.
True, and I'm sure there's a way that you could display digital highlights in your room. But if you bought, let's say, we think about the pride of the cards we owned when we collected. You gave me, it was a little bit mangled, but a Jackie Robinson card. Like I could put that card in a case on the wall, or if it's your, Muhammad Ali with the Beatles picture, like that's on the wall. Where these are digital highlights, so it's sort of.
Couldn't you put them in like that electronic frame they were doing for a few years ago?
I'm sure,
photos and
like I
kind
said,
of rotate through.
I'm sure that is coming from NBA TopShot. Okay. It's an official, frame. I'm sure you could do it with a regular frame now, but I'm sure like the official NBA TopShot frame is coming, and maybe it's in a cool, maybe you have some retro ones. You can make it your favorite team logo on it. I'm sure there's lots of different ways you could do it, and they'll make a ton of money if they do. But as of right now, you're basically you've got these highlights that you're just sort of, and again, the value is a weird thing because if you go on there, I think some people are just putting them at a ridiculous price because someone, and this is the other story I was going to relate to NBA TopShot, I think one is sold for $123,000 already.
Which one was that?
It was a LeBron 23, I think. So
that's incredible.
It is. And
so, speculating. So I would say that if I could pick a digital card of anything I want, I know this isn't available yet, but I would want Michael Jordan's last shot against the Jazz in Game 7, and I'd want the number 23 of that highlight, right?
Oh, yeah. That one. I'm sure any sort of Kobe Bryant big highlight from a championship game would be fantastic.
Sure, yeah.
I would think Jordan doing the signature free throw jam. I mean, you go down the line. Like I feel like those are the ones. Like Jordan is never going to not have value. Kobe is never going to not have value. LeBron, and then if you look at the sports cards, Doncic. What did Doncic's rookie card sell for? I want to say
big number though.
Yeah, I want to say $4 million, which sounds ridiculous. That's why I can't say it out loud, but I just did. But I think it might have been $400,000. But either way, that's a lot of money to play for a Luka rookie card. as great as Luka looks and potential to be, an all-time great. That just seems like the kind of number you would pay like 30 years after he retired, and the cards, and some people lost the cards in fires and garage sales and, flooding accidents, and there was only so many Lukas left. Like, it seems like at this point it'd be a weird amount to pay, but people are paying, so,
Yeah.
What can you do?
So what would you tell our listeners, that they should dabble or stay on the sidelines? What would you tell them?
I think if you're going to dabble, get in now or get it as soon as you can, because what they've said is that people participating in the beta have access to cards that nobody's going to have access to through packs. So if you want any of the Series 1 or Series 2 cards, you're going to have to get them through somebody that was in the beta, essentially. So it's sort of like...
You essentially have your place in line.
Right. And your cards, like I said, I think I have 9 highlights right now from the 2 packs that I bought. And even though one is one of 15,000, like, it's still supposedly the only 15,000 of that particular one that'll ever exist.
So how much have you invested so far?
About 150. And I think I probably invested the amount outside of packs that go from like $9.99 to $14.99. If there's a few more exclusive packs during this beta, I might throw that out there. But other than that, I think I'm probably just going to wait it out now and see, what happens. But again, if it goes global and you're in those Middle Eastern countries with a lot of money and they open it up to China and you get some big NBA fans there and people want what they want, you never know. Like I said, the fact that Steph Curry, somebody I know, flipped to Steph Curry in 10 minutes and made $500 profit is pretty credible.
Yeah, it is. That's better than an IRA.
Yeah. I was like, that's impressive. But then it puts you, then you're at that, the mercy of, when do you sell?
Yeah, you are. I mean, it's a speculative business.
Right. But it does seem like it's got the NBA backing and they're putting a lot of work into it. So, and it's almost become like the NBA's their own digital currency, if you will.
Yeah, kind of cool. Well, is tonight the All-Star game?
It is.
The All-Star game, the dunk contest is at halftime, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is there a three-point contest or not this year?
Last time I saw, there is. And the three-point contest has Steph Curry and Dame and some other people, so it's much more star-studded than the dunk contest. That's, Obi Toppin from the Knicks and a few other players you probably not heard of unless you're a big hardcore NBA fan.
Okay. Well, I'll probably tune in tonight.
It's not to say you're not going to see great dunks. It's just that,
No, but I love watching the three-point shootout. It's one of my favorite things to watch.
Yeah, no, that one seems really cool.
And, I'm usually not a fan of the game, and it just, it's just what it is. It's an all-star game with very little defense and, some effort, but not crazy. But people have a good time. And, it's more watchable than the NFL Pro Bowl. I'll give it that. But not as watchable as the MLB All-Star game.
Yeah. I would say one cool thing that I thought about the other day, just as far, I don't know if the NBA probably needs a lot of help expanding, but in wrestling right now, they have something called the 24/7 Championship. And it's somewhat, in WWE, it's somewhat of a comedy belt where if you're walking down the street, somebody can run up with you with a ref and pin you, and then they become the 24/7 champion. The current 24/7 champion is actually the recording artist Bad Bunny, who, even though I wasn't super familiar with, apparently has sold, in excess of hundreds of millions of copies of his albums. So he's pretty popular. But I thought, in the off season, if they had, the 3-point championship belt, and because we live in a world with Zoom and it's easy to upload things, like if Steph Curry is the current, NBA reigning 3-point champion, he's got a cool 3-point championship belt with, little basketballs that, run around the outside of the belt, that anyone could challenge him, and all of a sudden it's a 4-way zoom off between like Steph Curry, Dame, and, 2 other NBA players. And the belt just travels back and forth. You've got to defend your belt all the way through the offseason.
I like that.
I just think it would be fun. Yeah. So you're seeing guys in the offseason, and it's just like a fun, just I mean, not like I said, the NBA has tons of attention, but just to even add a little more attention, I think that'd be really fun. And if that was like a little web series, I would tune in all the time to watch that. Because again, like you said, the 3-point contest is fantastic. You know.
Okay. Since you brought up wrestling, it's not an entertainment moment yet, but I do want to tell people that I've been watching Young Rock.
Yes.
It's very well done. And, it's a good story. It's like Rock telling his own story. So he's in every episode, and it's like flashbacks with him at different ages with his family, talking about how he grew up. His father was a pro wrestler. It is really a good show.
And I have heard from some wrestling fans in my life that at least the first episode, like when they're in the wrestling areas, like it's one of the best things. It's like one of the best shows about professional wrestling. Like you get, some of the insider. It sounds like it's written by wrestling people for wrestling fans. And I'm sure The Rock is a third generation WWE wrestler who's, his grandparents were wrestlers. That he would, make sure that it was like that. But, if you're even a wrestling fan can tune in, it's not, and enjoy that part of it.
He talks about the highs and lows. I mean, he talked about his father wrestling at Madison Square Garden, but also wrestling at the opening of a supermarket chain.
Yeah.
Or a flea market. I mean, so it shows the ebb and flow of all this.
Yeah.
And it shows the competition. His grandmother was a promoter.
Oh, yeah.
So it's really autobiographical. I think it's really well done. And if you're a fan of wrestling, these first episodes have been I thought they've been great.
Well, there you go.
Yeah.
And I guess we'll have a weird wrestling show for a minute. But AEW, which is Tony Khan's wrestling, which is the son of the Jaguars, it's become clear that he's just not a rich kid that likes wrestling. He's a really smart wrestling promoter. And he's actually the writer of some of the shows, including a tribute show. But, they were they've done a good job of being the new competition for WWE. And for the longest time on Wednesday nights, AEW was up against WWE NXT.
Mm-hmm.
And AEW has consistently won that time slot every single week, to the point now where WWE is considering moving their Tuesday show, or their Wednesday show to Tuesday, so they don't get beat by AEW. So,
Interesting.
And besides Tony Khan, like I said, he's got the NFL connection with his dad, and that's where he, was able to get the money to put this promotion on. The one thing he's done differently than WWE is he has a lot more creative freedom with his wrestlers. It's a lot less at the whim of a crazy old man. No offense, Vince McMahon. But he also, he does the travel arrangements for his wrestlers. They're not independent contractors. They have health insurance. I mean, he's done a lot of things that,
So he's treating them better and treating them more like professional athletes.
He's treating them more like professional athletes and more like professional human beings. And it seems to be attracting a lot of people to his business. And the other thing he does is, not everyone is a wrestling fan, clearly. But as you know, I've been since I was a child. And I don't really watch as frequently anymore. But, sometimes when I'm at my home gym, I'll throw YouTube highlights on just of the newest stuff just to kind of keep abreast of what's happening. But wrestling is, obviously it's the physical stunt work that's pretty incredible, and that's part of the soap opera. But the soap opera is also the storylines. And whereas WWE seems to flip their storylines at a moment's notice because Vince McMahon decides, no, I don't like this. No, I don't like this. What Tony Khan has done is allow stories to play out, even stories that look like they were sort of dead in the water after 2 weeks. Rather than just abandoning the storyline, they've sort of, figured out ways to make them interesting and continue them going. So you get a more consistent storytelling. So
interesting. I like it. I like that. I like the approach. He's looked at what the wrestlers were criticizing about their current relationships.
Yeah.
And he's saw the hole and he's filling the hole. And the way to fill the hole is to give them what they want, treat them better, and they'll go to him and become part of his story.
And it's worked. So, a lesson out there to business people. Maybe listen to your workers from time to time. Yeah.
Excellent. Well, before we move on to our Steeler moment, I want to talk about my Oklahoma State Cowboys.
Of course. They're pretty high up in their rankings.
They were 17, and they had a week where they beat Oklahoma twice, lost to Baylor, and beat West Virginia, who was number 6. And when they beat Oklahoma the first time, Oklahoma was 6, and then they were 16 when they beat them the second time. And so I guess it looks like right now they're going to be the number 4 seed in the Big 12 tournament, but they're also projected as a number 4 seed in the NCAA tournament. So I'm pretty excited about that. And they won yesterday without 2 of their starters, including Cade Cunningham.
While you mentioned Cade Cunningham, I have not watched a lot of college basketball this year. But I listen to, as I try to keep my sports up, I do listen to the occasional podcast. And it sounds like a number of national people don't see a number 1 overall pick in Cade Cunningham. They see the physical tools, but they've yet to see, this is the guy.
The criticism was he wasn't taking over games.
Yeah.
He wasn't dominating games. And against Oklahoma, he played one game where he had 40 points and dominated it.
That sounds pretty impressive.
Any other game, he had 15 points, but dominated it by being the point guard and the assists and the passes. And so I've seen him dominate a top opponent in 2 different ways, which really solidifies him in my mind as a potential number 1 pick.
Okay.
He's a 6'8" point guard who can pass, rebound, play defense, and shoot. And he's not as athletic as some other people, but he's a solid player.
Okay.
So we'll see what happens.
Definitely.
And then I'm also going to Oklahoma State on Thursday, and I'm going to be there for the Oklahoma State Vanderbilt series in baseball. And the Pirates have the number 1 draft pick. And I talked to the GM of the Pirates, Ben Cherington, who's a former student of mine. I said, who should I be watching? And he said, whoever pitches for Vanderbilt Friday and whoever pitches for Vanderbilt Saturday. So they got Vanderbilt has 2 pitchers that will go in probably the top 3 picks of the Major League Baseball draft. One is Al Leiter's son, and the other one is Kumar Rocker, who threw a perfect game in the College World Series 2 years ago.
Oh, wow.
And they both Kumar Rocker throws over 100, and Leiter throws high 90s, but has 4 different pitches. And they're both pretty big guys. So we'll see. I'm looking forward to seeing those. Oklahoma State currently stands at 9-0 and ranked 11th in the country. I think Vanderbilt's higher than that. So I'm excited about it. It looks like some really good baseball. The only thing I'm worried about is the Sunday afternoon game. Sunday afternoon is good weather. Friday and Saturday night, I think the low on Friday is going to be in the 40s, and the low on Saturday is going to be in the high 30s.
It's not the best baseball weather.
They're both 6 o'clock starts, so it's going to be a little cool. So I'll be dressed for it. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, I would hope so.
But I'm excited about it. I'm also excited to be able to watch the NCAA basketball tournament from home, and being played all over Indianapolis. They'll all be in the same time zones, so that'll be interesting. They want to deal with that. So it'd be kind of fun to see and how they throw the games on and how they share them and what the viewers think about them.
Very much so.
But they are selling limited tickets for those games in Indianapolis. They're selling at 4 different sites, and I think they're having 1,500 to 3,000 people at each site.
Well, I would say...
We are moving.
Yes, and you've gone to more, but I've always found, as someone that bartended through most of college and grad school, I loved working at a sports bar on that opening weekend where you've got, 12 TVs in the restaurant, you got the full satellites, you have almost every game on some capacity, so you get to, bounce and hop and, look over here and come with us to TV. So, it's a great TV event, especially the first couple weeks.
It is a great TV event. And I'll be hunkered down using my direct TV to watch as much as I can watch for 4 days.
Yes.
So I'm excited.
Well, normally we do try to push the Steeler Minute, and we are towards the end, but it has been a national story all week. I've seen it on ESPN, Fox, Bleacher Report. Everybody's talking about the Ben Roethlisberger contract. And I thought what I'd like to do is, the one thing I keep hearing from pro-contract people is he's the best option they have. And what I would say to that is there's no question. If you're talking about Mason Rudolph, whatever Dwayne Haskins is, and Ben Roethlisberger, that if you're trying to win a couple of games or go 500, then Ben Roethlisberger is your best bet. But they haven't won a playoff game since 2016. And since Ben Roethlisberger was 28 and lost in the Super Bowl to Aaron Rodgers, they are 3-5 in the Super Bowl, in the playoffs, with losses to Blake Bortles and Tim Tebow. And I don't put that all on Roethlisberger. I don't put it all on Tomlin. But that's the reality of the team they've been for the last decade, and a team that hasn't won a playoff game since 2016. And you're talking about give Roethlisberger one more chance to go all in. They had that last year. They went 11-0, a very shaky 11-0, and bombed out in the playoffs. So all I see this year is a team that's going to have a slightly better record, which pushes you further back in the draft. And now you have $10 million in dead cap money coming over the next 2 seasons, as opposed to just getting it all out of the way now.
And you're delaying the inevitable anyhow, or you're still going to have to find out who the successor is.
Right.
And so, the thing I liked is he gave back $5 million, which is unheard of.
Yes.
Okay, so I did like that. But I'm not in support of the move. My move is, you and I talk about it. You just tear off the Band-Aid and just do what you got to do. It's inevitable what you have to do. To prolong it doesn't make a lot of sense.
And the other negatives I've heard is, Roethlisberger, anyone that looks at him can tell you he's not a gym guy. And it sounds like every coach that's ever worked with him has claimed he's not a film guy. He's not Tom Brady. He's not Drew Brees. He's not texting people at midnight the game before being like, go to minute, 43 of the film from the Bills game and watch what this guy does. Like, that's not Roethlisberger.
No.
And the offense has been very stagnant and very simple. No matter how much talent they have around him, they don't do a lot of movement. They don't do a lot of RPO. They don't do a lot of the things that modern NFL offenses are doing to confuse defenses. And I don't think you can start doing that with Roethlisberger and, at age 39 in his 19th NFL season.
I don't either. And I think it's silly to delude yourself that you contend for the Super Bowl next year.
Yeah. And again, you put Mason Rudolph in there.
Salary cap hell.
Right.
You're still going to lose a lot of players.
Yeah. You can't bring back the team that started a very shaky 11-0 this year with the amount of money you have. Even with the $15 million you created in Roethlisberger cap space. You're paying $10 million of dead money either over the next 2 or 3 seasons once he's gone. You're not instilling your new offense, I don't think, because I don't think you can completely do that with Roethlisberger as your quarterback. And I think you're going to be bad this year or mediocre. And I think rather than being on the up and turning things around in the next 2 seasons, now you put yourself back at least another season or 2. Outside of getting some...
We talked about it before on the show. The Steelers aren't going to beat the Ravens. They're not going to beat the Browns.
No.
They might split with the Bengals, but I see the Steelers fighting the Bengals to finish third in that division. With or without Roethlisberger. I don't think it makes a difference.
No.
They're going to have a solid defense, but that defense might spend a lot of time on the field because the offense isn't going to have – I don't think the offense is going to be there to help them out. So, I don't know. Bad move.
And like I said,
I'm usually really excited about the Steelers in the draft. I'm just – right now – the NFL story for me is Deshaun Watson, Miami or New York. That's the story for me. That's the most interesting story to me in the NFL right now.
It is. And I've also, you never know because you're getting a lot of stories out of NFL camps and some of them are purposely done to, make you think, left when they're going right kind of situation. But people are basically comparing, and this is a pretty big comparison as you talk to Deshaun Watson, is that maybe Justin Fields is this year's Deshaun Watson. Where a lot of the things they said about, Deshaun Watson coming out was some slow to read and, tries too hard for the big play and things along the same things you're hearing about Justin Fields, who was clearly, since he came out, the second best prospect after Trevor Lawrence. And now they're talking about him as the third or fourth or even fifth quarterback drafted. So maybe that's all hyperbole to try and, boost up other guys. And
yeah, we'll never know till the draft day.
No. And, it's also important to know that, as with everybody, situation matters. Yeah. If you get drafted to the, even though Atlanta, the Falcons are what they are and they've been kind of a joke, but like if you're going into a situation as a young quarterback, and you're going to have Julio Jones, you're going to have Ridley, you got a decent offensive line, a nice offensive-minded coach, and probably a year to sit behind Matt Ryan, or maybe half a season. That's a nice situation to walk into. Whereas if you go into the Jets as currently constructed, not the best, well, it does look like they're turning things around, not exactly the best situation to be walking into. Or the Texans, for that matter, depending on when they draft. So...
yeah. It is exciting to think about all these quarterbacks coming out and all this stuff we've heard and where the draft is going to go. So it'll be interesting and fun to hear all of it.
Yeah. Well, we both had what we hoped was a great entertainment moment that turned out to be a pretty mediocre one.
Yeah, it was mediocre at best. We're talking about Coming to America too. Coming to America is one of my favorite movies. It was so well done, so creative at the time. Uh, Eddie Murphy and Arsenio Hall were tremendous together. They played multiple parts, multiple roles. They did a great job. And Coming to America 2 was basically distant replay. I don't know. What would you call it, Jay?
I think that's close. And I mean, I can't imagine if you didn't see the original, you're not going to get anything out of it. There's so many callbacks. It's a lot of callbacks and a lot of cameos. Even there's a scene where, the premise is that, the original Coming to America, he doesn't like the wife he's been chosen for in Zumanda. So he flies to, of course, Queens to find his queen. And there's a scene in the bar where it's he and Arsenio, and there's all these different women are sort of come up, and there was these two women that rapped, and it's like a 15-second scene. They show up again in Coming to America as two twins that rap. So, I mean, every callback to the first movie is made, which I think is where I got most of my enjoyment from, was just, oh yeah, that's from that. Yeah, it's that one.
And the Barking Princess.
The Barking Print, like I said, Randy Jackson, like you said, I mean, all the guys in the barbershop, like, if you were in the first one and you made a memorable moment, you're going to be in the second one. But it's more of a nostalgia, remember this, as opposed to funny.
Yeah.
And then the story, I know what they were trying to do was, sort of retell it as the father, the son, and, but it just didn't feel like it was very, There was even, when people get there and they bump heads, because Leslie Jones and Tracy Morgan were very funny, I thought. But, all the new people that come to Zumanda end up having, a little beef with some of the older classic people. But it doesn't, it's sort of like they have their moment where it's like, oh, there's going to be friction. And then at a party, they're loving each other and happy. And there's not really like any story that goes along with them. There's no character development. It's just, they just all of a sudden get along. It feels kind of incomplete and rushed, but, what can you do?
It was disappointing. I wouldn't say it's bad. I would just say it's mediocre, and the mediocrity is really caused by your own expectations because you saw the first one.
Yes. And I'm going to give my B- to another entertainment moment. We watched the Vigil, which is a new horror movie that just came out. I give it a B because, first off, it's basically what a vigil is once someone in the Jewish faith passes away, someone stays with the body overnight, and they sort of read psalms and things along those lines. So right away, we see so many movies that revolve around the Catholic faith and the Christian faith. It's nice to be in a different world,
Yeah.
with different traditions, because then it's like, well, this is new ways to scare me, even if it's sort of, under the guise of something else. At least I'm learning something as I go. But it was yet another horror movie. There's a huge trend where I feel like, not that horror movies can't have a message, but there's a lot where it seems like the underlying message is more of a dealing with grief than a dealing with fear. I mean, that was, the Haunting of Bly Manor and all the Netflix stuff and,
Okay.
His House. There's a lot of movies where it's a horror movie. It's basically a movie about, accepting grief and forgiving oneself and things along those lines more so than about horror, which isn't necessarily bad. I appreciate that it happens. It's just happened a lot in recent horror. But I think you can watch it and enjoy it.
It was, I saw, that was the one I was trying to describe to you last week.
Oh, okay.
I said there was a movie that everybody's saying this is the must horror movie to watch.
To be fair, they say that once a week. But yeah, that was this week's one.
Yeah.
And it's, like I said, It's very solidly done. It's well acted. And again, I enjoy like when they speak, when even though I only speak, sadly, one language, I don't have the aptitude for language, but, they speak a lot of Hebrew throughout the movie. And I always like just listening for, the cadence and the social cues, and then hearing if there's words that are similar to English. But I know that's not for everybody, but I enjoy that part of it. So, and if you take me somewhere where it's, it's a culture I'm unfamiliar with, I'm even happier, because then it's like, well, at the very least, I get a little education along the way. So.
Okay. Well, I just read Stephen King's latest book, and it's called Later, Later.
Okay.
And it's from that true crime series that he writes for occasionally.
Mm-hmm.
And it was an enjoyable book. It was, if you took somebody with the ability of someone in the Sixth Sense,
Okay.
and you put them in a situation where they were able to talk to the victim. They were able to talk to someone that dies and find out about them. They stay around for 3 days after they die, right?
Right.
So this police lieutenant figures out, hey, I could solve crimes.
Okay.
And there's also the premise that if you're dead, you have to be truthful in anything that you're asked for those 3 days when you're still around. So it was a very, very interesting, fun read.
Okay. Well, while we're on the true crime-ish sort of thing, I did watch Netflix's latest true crime, which is Murder Among the Mormons.
Ooh.
And it's only 3 episodes, and it's pretty fascinating. It revolves around something called the Salamander documents that I won't go into anymore because that's an interesting part of the whole thing. But it's a pretty crazy 3 episodes. And again, you get to learn a little bit more about the Mormon faith and Mormon people along those lines, and then you also get your true crime to it too. So it's pretty cool.
All right.
But I don't want to give anything away. It's even though it's true crime, like I don't think it's as well publicized as something that people already know the details to. So.
All right. I've actually got a food moment that's going to happen. Hasn't happened yet, but it's going to happen.
A pre-food moment. Okay.
So a pre-food moment. So Goldbelly had a sale yesterday, a pie sale, 30% off. And you know the best apple pie, right?
I do. It's incredible.
The Elegant Farmer comes in a paper bag, and you bake it in a paper bag, and it is absolutely delicious.
It is.
So they had a two for $59.
Oh, that's a good deal.
Yeah, it is. And I got the caramel apple pie, which we really liked.
Yeah.
And then I hadn't seen this one before. I got a blueberry apple pie.
Okay.
And you're both baking the wrapper. So I'm excited about that. I know how it turns out because we bought it so many times before. But I will give a report on the blueberry apple pie once we cook that one.
And since Pi Day hasn't happened yet, 3.14. So I would point out as well that one of the keys of this pie is that the crust is more like a sugar. It's not quite a sugar cookie, but it's more got that consistency to it. It's still crispy, but it brings out the sourness of the. It's really good. It works.
Okay. And then my other pre-food moment is on Thursday, I'll be going to Bedlam Barbecue, which I've talked about before. And then also over the weekend, I'll go to the Hideaway and I'll go to Eskimo Joe's for a platter of bacon cheese fries, which are the best bacon cheese fries I've ever had.
Okay. Well, I had an exciting takeout moment. I've shouted them out before, but Smoked on Jefferson Highway, which is moved, which was information I did not have. So I ran out to get some lunch, and I drove to where Smoked used to be. With my mask on, walked inside, and I should have known in the parking lot, because Smoked is a very fragrant place. You really smell the smoked meat. Didn't smell it in the parking lot. Was standing in there, and luckily the cook was in the back, but he hadn't come up yet. And I glanced over the board, and then I realized it was the wrong restaurant. It's a new restaurant there called Liberty. And I just apologized and left and went to where I wanted to go, which was Smoked, where I had I had the Jayhawk sandwich, which is beef and pork on the same bun.
Ooh.
And like I said, Smoked is, I think if you talk to barbecue people down here that live in the city, it's either Blue Oak or Smoked. And Smoked is the newer one that a lot of people don't know about. So Smoked is really worth getting to know.
So is it chopped beef and chopped pork or sliced beef and sliced pork?
Chopped and chopped.
Okay, so more like, remember our famous Smoky Joe from Stillwater?
It is. They don't put any sauce on any of their meat. They have 6 different sauces to choose from. I recommend the spicy heat sauce, because I like a little, or there's a spicy sweet heat, spicy sweet heat. But they have 6 sauces to choose from, so, And sadly, they only do burn ends on Fridays, but their burn ends are also awesome. But I went on a Thursday, so, and I just went for a quick lunch thing.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, next week we'll talk about the NBA All-Star Game and the 3-point and the dunk.
Yes.
And I'll continue to follow spring training baseball. I'll give a report on my Oklahoma State trip.
Okay.
In fact, next week I'll be doing the show in Stillwater, Oklahoma.
There you go. On the road. Very exciting.
Yeah. So look for some, if you follow me on Twitter or Facebook, I will be posting food pictures and some Stillwater baseball pictures.
Nice. So again, sorry about last week. We're back on it. New microphone. Things seem to be going well. So keep tuning in. And again, if you have questions or things you want us to talk about, please let us know because we love hearing those topics. And if you have any NBA TopShot stories,
with Zoom, and if Zoom works for us, we're gonna be able to have guests on more regularly.
Yes. And if you have an NBA TopShot experience, let us know the details. We can continue.
Please share that. Yes, if you bought or if you sold, or if you just have an opinion about it.
Yeah. And I would say too, just one more TopShot thing. They let everyone that was in the beta get a pack, and the pack was $9. You got 6 highlights, so it's really worth the money. I mean, you're almost guaranteed to sell that for a profit. But in a minute, all 200 and something thousand people were in the queue, and they only gave them 60,000 people at a time. So, I mean, everybody that's in is completely in. Now, I know it's a small sample size, but just food for thought.
All right.
So,
everyone have a great week.